Household codes. Well, given that the subject is God's household, I guess the question about the household codes would emerge. And actually, the household codes, if you will, explicitly within the General Epistles that we're covering only appear in 1 Peter within chapter 3. But essentially, the household codes were actually embedded within. There are remnants of this, within among the Hebrew communities. During the era of during the huge chunk of time during the Old Testament, within the Hebrew scriptures were embedded within the communal life, the certain aspects of household codes. Greek culture or Hellenistic culture reflected the principles for the organization and order of households within their laws and within their philosophical concepts, and those were taken on by the Romans as well. And so the Roman Empire embedded within its laws ideals for an ordered household because individual households were seen as a microcosm or a smaller element, the building blocks, if you will, to a successful society. And a successful society with the emperor, who was the divine manifestation, the manifestation of God, or the appearance of God on the face of the earth. So an orderly household meant for an orderly empire, which meant for an orderly universe. And anything that threatened to disrupt the household would have, disrupted the order. So that's what was at stake. So you have the society that's ruled by patriarchal, so male-centered, as men were regarded as citizens, as having soundness of intellect and strength and spirit. The world and the cultures were literally centered around men. And so household codes involved male heads of household and told everybody how to function within them. So they prescribed proper conduct and behavior for wives and for children. But households were also considered in a much more broad-based way to include those under the employ of the head of household. So servants and the families of servants would also be the part of a household. There are remnants of ancient burial sites that have not only heads of household and blood relatives, but also servants that are buried within the same plots. But that was the society structure, and so too then Christian community reflected its larger society as it regarded itself as a family of sorts. And sought to connect based on those principles. And so some of the language within some of the letters of the New Testament include Christian influenced household codes, if you will, which really in structure don't differ from the dominant culture that surrounded them. So we explore a little bit the nature of the household codes. I think, this is one of the instances in which the rubber meets the road in terms of scriptural interpretation, and where we really have to be honest with one another in acknowledging the differences that we as Christians exhibit in how we interpret Scripture. And what is going to be our standard. Because many of the passages that we will encounter in the General Epistles are not ones that we regard as being the blueprint, if you will, for family life and family structure, much less some other areas. So, for instance, who rules the roost and what that actually means, and what's at stake in all of that, But even so far as imagining God as a father or head of household is also at stake in our exploration, and when we consider the basic principles underlying the household codes. So that's a not-so-nutshell about the concept of the household codes. Oh, I should say also that the household codes also appear in Ephesians. Actually, a more structured household code appears within Ephesians. So that's one other point of reference for the household codes.